Let's take a look at the Receipts module and related functionality in JobPro. So on the home screen, if you want to get a quick look at any receipts for a given day, week or month or a specific date, you can click on the Quick View arrow under the Receipts module. You can filter out by today, current week, current month, current year, set a date, and you can also filter out by different identities if you've got multi-companies or multi-offices or stores with using the same JobPro system. So let's have a look at the Receipts module itself. Now, you can create a receipt directly from the Receipts module and assign it to a customer, or alternatively, you can create a receipt from the Sales Account module, or you could also create a receipt from a customer screen, whether it's in the Company module or Contacts. And another option is, if you're in Sales Invoices, you can create a receipt specific to an invoice as well. So Sales Accounts is the other place that I mentioned you can create a receipt from. So whichever is the handiest to create a receipt. For example, if you receive a receipt in from a customer and you're in the Sales Account module, then simply create a receipt from here. That'll bring you into the Receipts module, where it'll show you any outstanding invoices for that account. So let's say the receipt is €300, for example, or €350 or dollars. Then what we need to do then is put in some receipt allocations against that amount. So in this example, the receipt is not just specific to one invoice, but it covers more than one invoice. So first of all, what we can do is we can fully allocate against the first invoice that's outstanding here. So we click on the arrow and we'll say fully allocate. So now that invoice is now been marked as paid automatically and no longer is in the outstanding list. And over on the left hand side we can see the first allocation for invoice number 45 with the full amount. We can see that there's still an unallocated amount on this receipt for €53. Usually you'll probably be entering in a receipt that's an exact amount for an invoice. So the easier way of doing that would be directly from the invoice screen, where you can simply do an auto pay, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. But more so, if you're part allocating across multiple invoices, then it's easier to do it from the receipt screen. So we're left with 53 unallocated, and we can either leave that on the customer's account. So for example, if we go into the account for that customer, and we can see that there's a balance outstanding, or I shouldn't say outstanding, but a balance on their account. Now it happens to be more than the €53 that was on that specific receipt. So they already had an account balance before they added another €53 to it. But if we go back into the receipt, we can allocate that amount against a separate invoice. So let's say we want to allocate, or we can finish off the balance for this invoice here. And when we select fully, it's going to take the balance remaining from that invoice and part allocated here. So now we're only left with one invoice outstanding for that customer. So we can allocate then the balance that's unallocated against this invoice. So if we click on the arrow, and in this case we'll select part allocation, which doesn't put in a figure, and then we can just simply put in the 29.14. And now this receipt is fully allocated. And the balance remaining on the last invoice for this customer is $69.86. We can also specify how they paid and into what bank account. And this is useful if you're integrating JobPro with another accounts package. You can also print a receipt from in here as well, where you can specify to use your own letterhead if you want to print it on pre-printed stationery. So we can email or print a receipt. So let's click on print. That shows then the receipt with the different allocations on it to the different invoices, and it also shows that the account has a balance of $69.86 US in this case. So there's a preference in setup to specify whether you want to include account balances on receipts. You also have the same functionality for invoices as well, where you can include aged analysis details on the bottom of an invoice. You could also put some comments on the receipt as well. And in setup, you can specify the default comments that you'd like to have on every receipt, but you can also edit them at the receipt level. So let's just take a quick look in setup and receipts. So in here then you can put in your default comments for every printed receipt. And you can also specify whether you want to include your color logo or your black and white logo or none on a printed receipt, or also whether you want to include your company name and subheading. All of this information coming from My Company in your identity section. And there's the preference for if you want to include the account balance at the bottom of a receipt as well. So let's go back into receipts. You can also look at the list screen in the receipts module, so you can do a search, find and sort on any level of receipts across any receipts in the system, maybe for a set of dates or for a specific customer, for example. And on the options screen there's some various reports that you can do in relation to receipts. Print receipts for a found set, print a mini list, or just print a receipt for the current record, or email a receipt for the current record. And you can also print an email in multi languages as well. Another method of creating a receipt would be directly from a sales invoice. So let's go into the sales invoices module. And we create a new invoice, link it to a customer, and then we'll just add an item on it. Okay, so if you get paid for the same amount that's on the invoice, then the easiest way to flag this invoice as paid and create a receipt at the same time is to click on the auto pay little tick or check up here. So this is going to auto pay the record, set the invoice to paid and create the receipt. Now another option that you could do is you could click on receipts and simply create a receipt from here. So let's go with the first option. And it says auto pay record. This will create a receipt and set the status to paid. So we click OK. And you can see then that a receipt has been created in the receipts module, linked to the invoice. The invoice has been set as paid. So it's pretty much done everything that you need. You can also print the receipts from here, or in this case a single receipt. Now that's printing like a list of receipts related to this invoice. If you want to print a customer receipt, you can click on the little print icon here. Or if you want to view the receipt record itself, click on the arrow, and there we can see the receipt record with the allocation against the original invoice, which has now been fully paid. So the whole area of invoices and receipts is tied together by sales accounts. Now the sales account module is the one place that you can go to find any customers that owe you money. And the reason why this module exists, or the primary reason, is because customers can exist at a company level in JobPro, and they can also exist in the context module like an individual that is a customer. So instead of having to go into two modules and search in two different places for people that might owe you money or that you've invoiced out, you can go into sales accounts. Because as soon as you invoice a customer, a sales account is automatically created. So in here then, every customer exists with any history of invoices and receipts that relate to that customer. And from here as well, you can do various reports, age analysis, and statements as well. And on the receipts tab, we can see any previous receipts plus any receipt allocations. And the reason why these are separate is because technically you can create a receipt for the full amount, but you may not be able to fully allocate that receipt. So let's say a customer overpaid you. Well, you have the ability to put in the receipt, but the allocations might fall short of what is on that receipt. So then that's why an account balance can be in credit for a specific account as opposed to being in the red where they owe you money. And then what you can do is you can either do a credit note for them and allocate it against that, or alternatively you wait until you need to invoice out the customer again and you could allocate the balance owed on or that they have on their account against that invoice, which would then clear their account. So that covers the receipts functionality in JobPro.